Welcome to the FeustelFIT Health and Fitness and what seems to be today a lifestyle podcast. This is episode 25 and today we're talking about parenting. I wanted to talk about different topics other than body positivity because I think once you get over your disordered eating, disordered food relationships, body image issues and over exercise, you're then left with real life. And then if you don't have any coping strategies with all the issues that happen in real life, you then feel a little bit stuck and have to deal with all of these things. And one of these issues is parenting, because let's face it, parenting is a really hard job and there's no book that tells you how to do it. So I got the advice of Anika, who is a parenting expert, and we talk about being a parent of a teenager. So I hope you're going to enjoy this episode. If you've listened to any of my other episodes, you'll know that I do various different topics and some may not be for you. I'm soon going to be having somebody talk about money as well. So we're going to go through various life topics because at the end of the day, it all comes under the umbrella of your health and well-being. If you've got on your wheel of life the various sections in your life, so you've got your social, your emotional, you've got your family, you've got your money, your finances, you've got your career, you've got your health and your fitness, you've got all of these different sections to your life. And when you don't have an eating disorder or any kind of disorder or addiction masking those areas of your life that are not going so well, you're then left with those areas and you have to deal with them. So let's learn some coping strategies and hopefully some tips and get some advice from Anika for parenting. And if it's not an episode that you're wanting to listen to, then please skip by and wait for the next one.
Money. Welcome to the FeustelFIT podcast with your host, Nicola Feustel. Straight talking, body positive coach and personal trainer. Nicola brings you your weekly guide to finding real health and fitness and to live the life you deserve.
So today I was joined by Anika Vassell from the Parent and Teen and Preteens Village community on Facebook. And I asked her to start by telling me exactly what it is that she does.
So I go by a teen behaviourist. So I work with parents primarily who have difficulties with their children, who are struggling, say their child is putting themselves at risk of harm out there on the internet, all kinds of things that, we fear is a reality for more parents than we realise it. So there's a lot of kind of things that young people are getting involved in. And what I found is that after the 0 to 5 years, there's not much support. So we kind of sail through the early kind of adolescent years, say from up to 11, or even earlier actually, about 8 years old, and we hit a wall. And things start changing, the hormones kick in, they are exposed to all kinds of things, they've got more influence by friends, and there's just no support out there. So that's kind of why I've set up this parenting group on Facebook.
Okay, so what about you? What's your story and why did you want to become a parenting coach?
My story is that I've had over 20 odd years of working with young people. So my background is forensic psychology, which is criminal psychology. And I was going down that route of wanting to work with offenders. However, after having children myself, I didn't want to be associated or be around that kind of negative energy. That's just how I felt, even though, it was such a passion of mine originally. And I worked with young offenders and, I've worked with children in children's homes. And I used to run and manage a unit. And I've had 6 children living with me, actually, at one point earlier on in my career.
Wow.
And also teaching. So I taught psychology. But I think really what I want to do is the preventative bit. And what I see is in order to prevent what's going off, and, there's a lot of children out there who are in distress, absolute distress. And what I keep finding is that there is a disconnect between parents and their children. Parents and teens, it's off the scale. And I was finding, particularly when I started working at this school, because I wasn't in the role that I normally am in. So I went to work in a school where children, it was a middle class school, The children in a middle class area, the children didn't look like me. I'm a black woman with dreadlocks, and I was still getting children coming to me and approaching me. I think because of the subjects that I was teaching psychology, they would still come to approach me about very personal things. And the first question I always ask them is, have you spoken to your parents about this? And the answer would be more often than not, no. So then I started kind of investigating in terms of getting into a business, and I realized that parents just don't have a clue what their children are being exposed to. They don't have a clue how to communicate, a lot of them. And I don't believe it's a parent's fault. We just are kind of left out there. And I believe that we are all educated to become parents. Before we have children, we are, we've got midwives, we've got, health visitors, all helping us to do the most basic of things. But then we're left to do nothing and to try and figure it out. And then we've got a crisis with teenagers.
So do you think that it's getting worse now?
I think it is getting worse now, yeah. I think there's an imbalance of parental control. I think there's an imbalance of parental respect. I believe that children have a lot of power, or, we can hear them in terms of their voice, which is good. But I believe that whilst we've empowered children, we have disempowered parents. Mm-hmm. And, there's a lot of parents who are fearful of their children. And most of the work that I do with parents, if I'm working with a parent on one-to-one work, is about confidence and being able to establish themselves as a parent and as somebody who can instill discipline and put in rules and regulations in their house. And a lot of it is, they're quite fearful of what can happen and the tantrums that their child might have. So, yeah, it is getting worse. Yeah, definitely.
So why do you think the communication's been lost and the teenagers don't want to go to their parents and they'll go to a complete stranger before they'll speak to their family?
Oh, gosh. I think it might be down to respect for parents. That's what I see. I believe that a lot of young people, they don't believe that their parents have the capacity to deal with whatever issue it is, or they're more trusting of people out on, perfect strangers on the internet. They'll go and get their advice from. So I just think it's about that relationship, that connection, and the respect, really, that actually you're my parent, you've got my best interests at heart, and I need to trust you that the advice you're giving me is solid. I'm not sure why there is a setup there, but really we need to be spending more time talking about all of those taboo subjects that we don't want to, that feel a bit uncomfortable for us as parents. But what we need to recognise is that our children are going out to find out exactly about all of those subjects that we don't want to talk about. And if we're not positioned to give the information, they're going to find it elsewhere. And if it's easier to go to somebody else because, they're not feeling so embarrassed, then they'll go. But we need to let them know that they need to come to us. We're going to give them the best advice, in terms of who they are and how it relates to, it's not going to be a PC advice either, because when children come to me and speak to me, I've got to give a PC answer, but it might not be based on anything in terms of my personal experiences or what I wish for them or anything. It's just going to be kind of a sterile bit of information. So, yeah, I think it's the connection between parents and teens that really needs to be addressed.
But do you think as well, because today everybody's so busy and a lot of parents are working long hours and commuting in and out of London and so on, do you think it's a case of time, not having time to sit down and talk to their children?
I think we need to make time. These are our babies, our children. We need to make that time. Life is busy, but, things are going to get really busy for you when your child, hits a crisis point. Trust me, you will find the time to deal with that, and it will consume you. It will consume you at work. It will consume you so that you can't sleep. It will consume every bit ounce of you. So the best thing, this is what I'm trying to do with parents right now, is get them before the crisis point hits, because when it hits, my goodness, it's not good.
So when we're talking about teenagers, what age do you classify teenager, and does it differ from girls to boys?
Well, I I market myself as a teen behaviourist because usually people come to me when they've hit in the teen years and the crisis point when it's hit. But actually, I do try and reach out to, young adolescents. So I say between 9 and 19. That's the demographic that I work with. Anybody who's got a child who's just about to go into, there's certain things that you need to know and prepare yourself for before they hit the teen years. So yes, it's great. I'm there and I'm, providing a support service for parents who have teenagers and who are going through the crisis point. But actually, my real where I get the real joy is the preventative bit. The preventative bit, and informing parents and sharing my skills with parents so they can go and do it themselves and they don't have to go through, the journey, or it's not so rough for them.
I mean, you are the first parenting coach that I've ever seen. So I think possibly it's a case of there's not much help out there as well, because you can feel a bit isolated having a conflict at home with a child and not really know who to go to or where to get any advice or help from. And if your friends or peers or colleagues or whatever are not having the exact same thing with their child, or their child's not the same age, you've got no one to go to for support.
That's right. I mean, that's why I've kind of set up the group. But what I also recognise is that there's a lot of blame and shame of parents. So parents don't tend to come forward. Even now in the group, I put things out there. My last post I put out there was about parental abuse and, parents getting beat up and attacked and physically assaulted by their children. And eventually, a few parents stepped forward. But the amount of parents that are contacting me behind the scenes and not wanting to speak out because they feel the shame, they feel that they're going to be blamed and they've done something wrong. And, I think we need to really change the attitude and the culture towards parenting older children. It isn't easy, and absolutely we need the support networks there, and absolutely we need to be trained and supported and educated about some of the issues that teens go through and how to manage it. So yeah, there isn't that much support out there, absolutely, and it does need to change.
So do you think, obviously, in a case like that with the teen being violent, that's quite an extreme case and obviously very disturbing, but is it a case of it's got too far, or can you always bring things back?
I never give up, I would never give up, absolutely. I mean, it can feel like it's gone too far, but it is a case of, usually when I'm working with parents, it's about the confidence levels. And, in any situation, if a child is getting away with, maybe it's not as extreme as, the physical attacks, but in any situation where there is a child and they are taking advantage, or, maybe they're having tantrums in the home or refusing to do things, when you step up as a parent, then the child will not want it to change because they want this, the status quo. They want it to stay exactly as it is. They've been getting away with it. Why should they change? They're going to put up a fight. I think we just need to expect that there's going to be a fight. But if you back down after that fight, then that fight, next time you try and challenge them, it's going to get tougher. So once you go through it and step up to them, expect them to raise the bar, but you've got to keep going through. And absolutely, they can change. If they're treating you a certain way and they're not treating somebody else a certain way, that means it's behaviour that they are choosing to apply to you as their parent. So, the problems come in is if they're treating everybody like that. But if it's just you or in your home and they're being disrespectful, then it's something that can be addressed.
Do you think sometimes, like, bad behaviour, not anything specific, but just behaving badly to your parent, could be a case of trying to seek attention from them?
Yeah, I mean, that can happen too. So we need to be, just like you were saying about the time and not having time, we need to be spending time with our kids. We need to be having those conversations. So yes, it could be attention seeking. And if it is attention seeking, we need to be giving them the right attention. And also we need to be giving them the attention so that they're not going outside of the home to seek inappropriate attention. So yeah, we need to put the time in, and that's crucial. It is about time. That is the most precious thing that you can give your child, and it's the most effective thing that you can implement is spending time.
It's interesting because the thinking about kids trying to get attention off of you. I've got a 5-year-old and an 18-year-old, and in some ways, I feel like the parenting is the same, although they're
Yeah,
so different in age. And that's where I don't have anybody in a similar situation to me, because most people either have teenagers or young ones, and they've
yeah,
kind of forgotten the what happens in between.
yeah,
So
yeah.
definitely you see 5-year-olds having tantrums, and normally that is because they want to get your attention. And I do think that even teenagers do exactly the same thing, and maybe it is because they need your attention.
Yeah. You're spot on, honestly, Nicola. I think the difference is that you can't put the older one on the naughty step. So,
Yeah.
we need tools to be to kind of manage that behavior, but it's exactly the same thing. I talk about, teen tantrums. That's exactly what it is. It's or terrible teens. You have the terrible toddlers.
Yeah.
Yeah, terrible teens. It's the same thing. And what? A lot of their behaviour is down to the way that they are. There's a lot of changes in the brain, and these things are kind of natural. It's a process, so we can expect certain things to happen. We can prepare for them. A lot of it isn't about them being naughty or in terms of something they just can't help. They misinterpret information. Even there's so many things that are happening in the changes in their brain that are impacting on them. Not as an excuse, we still need to manage it, but there are changes. Just as in any developmental stage, there are changes.
It's interesting. One of my clients does talks about the brain, and she told me that my daughter and her friends and the way that they act is because of stuff going on inside their brain, and that they can't put places like where you would think, well, tomorrow I've got to do this, then I've got to do that, so I need to pack this food and I need to get those clothes ready. She was saying just the process of one event leading to the next, they can't then plan ahead like that because their brains are not working in that way.
Yeah. I mean, some of it, maybe they just can't be bothered. But yes, absolutely, there are certain things that are happening. It's a developmental stage, and it's the next major developmental stage after the 0 to 5 years. So, expect the changes. And if you're not prepared, if you're not skilled up, if you haven't got the support as a parent, then it's likely to be rocky. It's the only thing is we tend to be so isolated. We think it's only happening to us when actually it's happening to them next door, and the door after. It's something that is common, and it needs to be. We need to just speak more about it.
Because I did want to speak to you about that, the brain development, and if you understand why. Because a lot of the talks I have on my podcast are about eating disorders, and many people say that their eating disorders started when they were a teenager because of what the changes that happen in their brain. Just a normal diet at that age can then turn into an eating disorder. Do you understand the process behind that? Can you explain that to us?
I come from more in terms of the pressures of society and the media. So that's kind of how I look at it in terms of self-esteem, being resilient, being able to distinguish between the images that they're seeing that are being portrayed or flashed through the TVs or through the computer screens at them, that those aren't real. So it's more when I work with young people who have got self-esteem issues, I'm more focused on just bringing back the reality. And in terms of like the eating disorders, I mean, it's so complex. So it really does depend on where that child is at, or what's impacting on them. It could be eating disorders as well as it can be around control. There's so many different things that could have happened. They've related it to abuse as well. So that it's very, very complex in terms of eating disorder. So yeah, it really does. It is really on a case by case basis that you would assess that.
So as parents, how can we help our teenagers to be more body positive and not be so affected by the things that they see in the media?
We have to be talking about it, and again, it comes back to time. But what I do with my children, I will let them see. For instance, they will enjoy watching like their videos, and if they see somebody, Beyonce or I don't know, Nicki Minaj, I also let them see the process behind that. So when they're seeing these videos, they need to know that there's been a makeup artist that has been with them, that they have trained for hours, doing the right moves and getting that video in. They've got camera, they've got lighting, they've got all of those things. So in terms of that, it's not real what they're seeing. It's a portrayal. It's an illusion what they're seeing. And actually, can they see any Nicki Minaj's around them? Can they see any Beyonce's around them? No, because when you can see them in their day-to-day life, they look very different. But also it's okay to do all of that and create an illusion and have a fantasy world. But as long as we know and we're clear that that's exactly what it is. So it becomes very difficult as they get older. I know that. But in terms of, when they're younger and when they are 9, 10, 11, these are the messages that we need to be putting out there to our younger ones. For the older ones, it's kind of deconstructing that and ensuring that they are feeling confident and all of the self-esteem work and the resiliency work to put in there. But it's kind of you're deconstructing the kind of mindset that they've already built up, which is obviously a lot tougher.
Yeah, because I do feel like a lot of this has only happened really in the last few years. So my teenager already is 18, so she would have gone through that stage already, and now obviously the media is everywhere. So luckily for us, she hasn't had an issue with herself from looking at things. But there are obviously on Instagram, she'll sometimes say to me, oh, look at that, how do I get this or that? And obviously as a body positive fitness person, I have the right things to say to her. But in a way, it's tricky because where I've changed my opinion and learned and changed myself, I've had to try to change the opinion that I already gave her. So I don't know if you get what I'm saying there, but is there any advice you have for people? Because obviously as a parent, you are also growing and changing yourself as a person. What happens if you change your opinions and views on something and you've already told your children one thing and now you're trying to change it? Do you have any advice on what you can do there?
I think you can just be honest with your child. You can have we change and we grow, and that's something that isn't going to stop. We are always going to change and develop and grow. And as long as our children know and are clear that any support, any advice, anything that we are saying to them is coming from a place of complete, total love and adoration for them and wanting the best for them, then, they can't question that. So, things do change, and we can be very, very clear and very honest with them and say, yeah, I used to think that, that's exactly where I am. But, now I've learned and I've grown myself. Now I can see, and this is actually something that, the advice I'm giving you now is something that you would benefit from. And I wouldn't lie to you. I wouldn't want anything, worse or, negative to happen to you from the advice that I'm giving you. So, I think again, that's, the trust that you have with your child or what you build up. But as long as, we change, so I wouldn't beat yourself up or, any parent to beat themselves up about having, a different view from when they were younger. I change my views all the time as I learn and grow. So it's not a problem. As long as your child knows that you've got their very best interest at heart and they can never question that, it's all good.
And what about history repeating itself? So you have those conversations with your children and tell them things that you got up to when you were younger, and then your child goes and does it and says, well, you did that, so it's okay. I'm going to do that as well. What do you think about that?
You know what? It's as long as, for me, and this is how I, grow and raise my children, is I give them the information. So I will give them all the information about the good things that can happen if they do that. And I will give them all the information about the bad things. And the bottom line is, when they're able to make that choice, then they need to make the choice. So, I'm very open and very clear and quite harsh in terms of the reality of what it is that they're getting into. So as long as their eyes are open, that's, as far as I'm concerned, that's my job done. Then it's for them to make the choice. And they might make the choice, they might make the mistake. But whenever they go down that road, as long as I've had that conversation, if they go down the road and they can see a mistake happening because I've already explained to them what's going on, then hopefully that will make them, kind of revert back and say, okay, yes, my mum did tell me about that. and there's nothing more that we can do. I think just ensuring that they are making informed choices, and the way that they make informed choices is by us giving them the information that they need.
And I think on that subject, like, I've always had the approach of, if I just tell my daughter to be honest with me, I know she's going to do certain things that I won't like, but as long as she's honest with me, then I can have her safety is like the priority. And I know some parents will be so strict and they wouldn't even have that conversation with their child because they don't want them to do that thing, whatever it may be, at all. And so the child will still go along and do it, and then the parent will be none the wiser.
I totally agree. I mean, my parents were particularly strict with me, and I got up to all sorts. So, it's like I think again, it's just going to have to be about them making informed choices, but also that they've got to grow, they've got to learn, and they are going to make mistakes. What we pray for in terms of our parenting is that any mistakes that they make, that they learn from and they grow from. That's kind of the process. So I think we just need to arm them with information, with the tools, with the ways of just looking out for possible dangers and who to go to and where to go to and when to go to other people for the support as well. So they need support networks around them. Children, teenagers, they're gonna try, they're gonna explore. I'm still trying different things. I'm still wanting adventures. I'm still, going out there and trying risky things. Not putting myself at risk, but in terms of risks, as in trying to, leaving teaching and going into business. So that's a thrill that I get. But so it's natural. We just need to give them the information and, pray and also hope that they take that on board. That we're not going to prevent them from taking risks. Is basically what I'm saying. They're going to do it. They just need to be making informed choices.
So it seems like, and obviously, it's obvious that the best thing really to do is open up communication with your teen. What happens when you're so busy, you're in and out of the house, you're like passing ships, and the common way to communicate with them is through text messages, WhatsApp messages, and Post-it notes. How do you get them to sit down and have a family meeting?
Okay, it might not be a family meeting. It might be, I've written a book, actually. Can I say that?
Yeah.
I wrote a book. It's called Creating Special Moments with Your Teen. And it's conversation openers that you can have with them. And it can be like, quick things and, inexpensive things to do with your child, just in order to keep that connection going. So it isn't time consuming either, in terms of, we are living these busy lives. But there are things, we can open up things and get to know each other and learn about, our children through communicating. So, in that book, it's like there's 52 things, or it's a year's worth of stuff that you can do with your child. And very quick, but lovely. And, just spending, 10 minutes with your child, 15 minutes with your child a week, where it's focused on them. We can all find 15 minutes to do those things with our children. It's important, and it will save a lot of time and energy in the future.
Do you think that's key then, to have short time together? Because I've tried to open up that channel with my daughter and say, well, let's cook some dinner together, let's spend an evening. And then, although she says it sounds like a nice idea, but her friends will then come up as priority, or she'll have something else on, and so it never gets done.
No, well, you can have little short moments. It doesn't have to be the whole evening. Yes, they're friends. The excitement is out, outside, or, on the phone or whatever. So you can have lots of little short moments together, and you can have lots of little short, deep conversations with them as well, where you, and it doesn't even have to be a conversation where they're answering you back. You can just give them some information for them to chew on. You can pose a question for them to have a think about, and then they can go off, and then you can ask them, oh, did you think about what I said to you? Let's have a quick conversation about that. So it doesn't have to be anything at length. You can have beautiful moments in short spaces. You can drive to school with them in the car, or walk with them to the shop and have a moment. It doesn't have to be a prescribed we're gonna set out family time at this time and we're going to do this. No, we can just weave it into our lives, and that's fine, and that's lovely. It's quality over quantity, I'd say.
Yeah. I think that's nice because when you put a label on it, like this is our family time now, or this is our family meeting, they're just gonna cringe and retreat to their room. And
Yes,
that's the
yeah,
last thing that they want to do is sit down. And my daughter's even said to me she doesn't want to stand there and feel like she's in court with me and she's on trial.
yeah, yeah. No, you can weave those conversations into daily life, and that's lovely. And you can have those, like I said, those deep, deep conversations, and they don't have to be. It doesn't have to be an hour long at all. You can have lots of them, and create the hour.
When it is something that's a little bit negative and something that's bugging you or hurting you and you want to open up a conversation, what advice have you got there?
If it's something that's quite serious that's happened.
Yeah, just anything that's like on the negative. So it's obviously a difficult conversation to have.
Okay. Can you give me an example? I mean, where I want to go is that I'd probably, if it was something that I would probably ask them how they would feel. That's how I would start the conversation. How would you feel if you was in this position, or if you found out that about somebody, or how do you think I would feel if I found that out about you? So to get them thinking about their actions rather than me telling them you've done X, Y, and Z and this, that, the other. I would want them to communicate with me and to think it through. So that's kind of how the approach. Does that make sense? Is that what you're asking me?
Yeah. So you're still saying short and sweet, leave them to think about it, and then come back to talk about it.
It depends what it is. It depends. I mean, you can pose a question. There's lots of different tools you could use. Pose a question, but if I'm dealing with any child, I want them to think about their actions, and I want to put the questions to them, and then I want them to come and tell me why I'm feeling this way. That means, rather than me going, you've done this and now, da, da, da. No, I want them to come and tell me how I'm feeling because of their actions. And then usually, it comes with an apology, and I've not had to force it out of them. So that's what I would, be advising, really.
Okay. And just moving on from that, I was just thinking about money. Often with teens, like what they think is mine and what's yours is mine. So do you have any tips on teaching the value of money and not wasting money and taking it for granted?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in terms of, are they doing the shops? In terms of the food shopping, are they mindful of the bills? Are you getting them to pay for things or take control? In terms of turning into an adult, it's also about learning about those responsibilities. My girls, I mean, I've got two girls, they're 9 and 13. And, what I say to them is, in terms of you becoming an adult, it isn't about going out. It isn't about wearing makeup. It isn't about your nail varnish or, your boyfriends or whatever. If you can control and manage a household, when you can manage a household, then I will see you as a woman. So until you can cook and you can clean and you can do all of those things for yourself, then, when you're coming to tell me about this, that, the other, and, and you've got a concept of money and you've got a concept of this, then, you'll have all the responsibility you need. But, there's a balance. So with we have to teach them those things. We really do. So if a child has got no concept of money, then that's something that we can instill in them. And what we need to do is give them responsibility and make them aware, open up the bills and let them see your bank account and see how you're, kind of taking this to pay for that. Or, we really they need to have an understanding so that that's part of them moving through from child to adult. This is the moment where we need to be instilling those things, more responsibilities.
So what if they say that money's stressing them out and they don't want to look at that?
What do you mean, money stressing them out?
So when you try to give them more responsibility and say, well, have a look at these bills, this is what needs to go for this is what you're paying for that, and they say, well, I don't want to look at that because it's stressing me out, I've got too many other things to be dealing with, I've got my exams, I've got this and that going on outside of life, outside of the household.
Well, if they're getting money from you if you're providing them with money, then then they need to look at the money. I wouldn't accept no as an answer. And the thing about it, it doesn't have to be something where it's like a punishment either. It's just like, oh, let's have let me show you this, or can you take responsibility for this? It doesn't need to come across as a punishment when they're learning about things that they're going to need to know about. It's I suppose it's a way that you can integrate it into those moments that you have with them. It doesn't have to be a negative experience learning about these things.
And okay,
does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you mentioned punishments there, and we did a little bit earlier as well, and I wanted to come back to that, because there's obviously various punishments you do for certain ages, and grounding has always been a big one. But what happens when your child's too old for grounding?
When your child is too old for grounding, then they need to be too old for grounding. When they're too old for grounding, are they an adult themselves now? Too old for grounding. Are they paying for bills? What are you doing for them? What responsibilities do you need to be instilling on them? What things are you going to take away? The tasks that you're doing for them. What are you going to hand over now? It depends on your child as well. You've got to kind of weigh it up. It's very difficult to kind of put something general out there. But no, if your child is under your roof, and I think that's where confidence kicks in again, then there are certain things that they have to do. If I'm living with somebody else as an adult, then there's certain things that I'm going to have to do. There's just going to be certain ground rules in that relationship. So and if I don't put them in place, or if we don't set them in place, then somebody's going to be taken advantage of, and somebody's not going to be pulling their weight. So we need, as parents, to step up and challenge that. It's not about a free ride. It's not about and it isn't about it's an attitude where they want to contribute as well. They should want to contribute, and that's what we need to be instilling. If they don't want to contribute, then we need to take away what we are doing for them and hand them over a responsibility.
Yeah, so how obviously without there being any grounding, and you've established that there are a list of rules to living under the house, so if they're not obeying by the rules, then what's the alternative? Like moving out of the house? These are the rules to live here, so if you're not going to live here, you're not living here.
If they're old enough, then absolutely. If they're of age and they don't want to listen to your or abide by the rules that you've got in your household, then actually they need to be moving on. And in that moving on doesn't have to be negative either. You can actually help them and support them to move on. But if as an adult, if I'm going back to live with my parents, there's going to be certain rules that I'm going to have to abide by. Otherwise, I'll have to come out. So we really do need to be not fearful of them growing up and moving on. That's part of their journey. And again, like I said, it doesn't have to be negative. It doesn't have to be, you need to get out. It can be, okay, let's find you somewhere to be. It could be around the corner. It could be, with friends, or if a few of them feel that they are, ready. I don't see it as a negative thing. They will learn. They will learn quicker when they're out.
So just thinking about from the child's perspective, then they've been a child and you've done all these things for them, then suddenly they're becoming of age and now they've got all these rules that they have to abide by or not live in the house anymore. It sounds really negative. And how do you keep that a positive thing? How can you make them see that it's positive for them to have more responsibility and to actually live with you? It's going to be cheaper and it's going to be better for them.
Sometimes they might not get it until they've experienced it. I'm sure if a bit of excitement for a few months and they'll be back. That's kind of, and if they're not and they're thriving, then great as well. I don't see children moving out as a negative, and I know that it can be frightening, and it is worrying as a parent, and we want them. But yeah, I don't think we need to present it as a negative. Okay, you don't want to do this. Let's look at. I think you're coming of age. and I think maybe it's time for you to move out, and let's start looking and seeing what you can do. And in that, you can look at the finances. How much is it going to cost you to get a cooker? How much is it going to cost you to get a dishwasher? Let's work it out. You're going to have to start saving. No, I'm not going to give you money. Let's put that money in a fund now so we can save, so we can look towards you moving on. If you're not going to listen to me, that's fine. If your child's an older child, then they can, let's support them to spread their wings. And we don't have to be negative about it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And it sounds so easy just to say that, but I could just see that going terribly wrong.
Really?
From the perspective of the child, or the now coming adult, if you like. So on that note,
they'll put up a resistance if things are cushy in the house, and now all of a sudden they're faced with the prospect of like shipping out. They're going to put up the resistance, which is what I mentioned earlier. But I don't think it's negative, a child, moving on. And if we're part of that, we can make it, more comfortable, and we can also be teaching them about the finances as well, and saving money, and doing, looking for places. How much is it going to cost you a month to live? That, all of those things are key skills in terms of, being an adult.
Okay. And obviously being an adult and living under the roof, we're talking about bills now. How do you, and when do you start introducing paying rent?
If they're working, they should be contributing. And even if you take that money and put it into a saving account, for them, they should be contributing something. They should get into that mode. If there's money coming in, you should take something. Even whatever amount, nominal amount, you should take something from them. You don't necessarily have to spend it, like I said, but they should get into the habit of knowing that now it's time they need to be paying towards these bills that you've explained need paying for.
Okay. Easier said than done. Easier said than done.
It is, and like I said, they're going to kick up a fight, but get ready for the fight. If I had it cushy and somebody told me that you're going to have to do X, Y, and Z, then yeah, I'm going to fight to keep it the way that how it has been. So get ready for it, but either you don't do it or you do. But if that's something that you feel needs to be instilled, some parents won't, and I wouldn't want to impose anything on parents either. So some parents won't want to, and that's fine. But if you do, then you can do it, and that's okay. And it's not unreasonable what you would be asking for. It isn't unreasonable. It is fair. If they went out and asked any of their friends or spoke to their friends' parents, it's like, what? Most people would say, yeah, that's pretty fair to be paying and contributing towards a household. And actually, that should be instilling them with some pride that they are contributing and they are of age. Forget the makeup, forget this, forget the the drinking or whatever. Contributing to the household. That should be filling them with some pride. So yeah, I would, if you wanted to, then I would say, yeah, do it and expect them to resist.
So in terms of contributing to the house, like cleaning, that kind of thing, how do you get them to do more?
How do you get them to do more?
Yeah, and to take pride in the house and not assume that it's everybody else's job.
I would be taking away, my own services. I would, I'm trying to think. When I had 6 children living with me, and these were children with behavioural difficulties, serious behavioural difficulties that didn't, they weren't able to be schooled in a conventional school, and they had chores. All of them had something to contribute to, and it went without question that we all needed to contribute in order to live in this house. So I think children, they're capable. They are capable of it, and it's up to us as parents. Again, it's about a confidence thing to instill that, and they will resist. They will resist, but you know what? We prepare for that. We know that it's going to happen, but we still put our foot down. And it will be like on a case by case basis in terms of what you could do. It depends on the child what's going to be more effective or most effective in terms of the kind of consequences that you could put in place.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing that's hard, because then you think, well, if you're not pulling your weight, how about I don't pull my weight, and then the house doesn't get tidy. And then you just get fed up and you think, well, I'm just going to have to tidy it anyway because I don't want to live in a tip.
Yeah, I wouldn't cut my nose off to spite my face.
Yeah.
So if the house needs tidy, tidy it. But there are certain things that certainly, I mean, if they're not working and they're coming to you for money, then that wouldn't happen. If they are expecting you to wash clothes or buy clothes, then that wouldn't happen. It's give and take. If they're becoming of age, and certainly if they're not wanting to contribute, then I would certainly be talking about them moving on. And that might be when they start to learn how to live, and when they will get pride in their living environment, when they're inviting friends and their place is disgusting, they'll soon won't want to be known as having a dirty house. So there's a lot of things that they will learn once they move out. So I think that there are things that you can put in place as a parent, certainly.
So for anyone that's listening who has sort of a teen in the middle age and they're not ready to leave and they feel stuck because they're in the house and they're not contributing to anything and they're not opening up any conversation with them, what tips or advice have you got for them?
Really depends on the relationship you've got and the child that you've got, but I would be instilling those things. Like if the child is wanting you to do for them, then they need to know that it's not it doesn't come without some give and take. A child, if you're teaching your child to be responsible and caring and all of those elements, you can't expect to be doing everything for your child and they're not doing something as well. So again, that comes down to the confidence of the parents to challenge that and to be willing to take as well, because even myself, when in terms of like consequences, and it's something I really want my child to do, say they've got their sports club, or they've got something that they're looking forward to, it hurts me to take it away. Sometimes it's like, oh gosh, I don't really want to put this punishment in place, but actually when you follow through and they trust you and believe you that you're going to do it, it won't take many of those occasions, those deep disappointments for your child to like fix up. So yeah, I think that there are things that we can do as parents.
I guess the hard bit is getting the strategies, working on your confidence, and then putting it in place, because obviously you've been one way and your child's used to that way, and suddenly you turn around being a bit more assertive, they'll be like, hang on a minute, what's going on here? Absolutely,
yeah. And it's going to throw them, and you've got to kind of build up your strength and your just to know that you're doing the right thing. All of these strategies that we put in place, it's coming from a place of love. Even if your child is going to kick up a fuss, that whatever lesson that they're learning from it is something that you strongly believe in. You're not doing anything to harm your child. You're not doing anything to go out of your way to make their life miserable. You're doing it because actually it's the right thing to do. And we know it in our heart of hearts. We know what we're doing the best for our children, and they know it as well. So when we're coming along doing all of that, it's tough lessons, but you know what? I'm doing it for the best, and that's the kind of attitude we need to take on board as well for our, when we're approaching these situations.
And I think I find, as a parent of a teenage girl, and even a 5-year-old girl, actually, I just find girls are terribly conflicting. And I don't know if it's because I'm female as well, and it's the female hormones conflicting, and there's always fire going on in the house. But I know from other parents who have teenage boys, they don't have the same fire, but then they almost want to get fire out of them because the boys do nothing. How do you, with the parents of the teenage boys, get them to want to be like even ambitious, just to get out of the house and get a job and just do something?
It depends on the child that you're working with. So it depends. Really we need to be looking at what is going to get them motivated. And motivation is it's a difficult thing to try and tackle in a general way, a general vein. We really need to know, what is it that's preventing them, and what are the barriers to them getting to where they want to go. It's all about goal setting. It's all about working with them on goal setting and their identity. What is it that they like to do? It's all right as carving out a path for our children, but really we want them to be happy and doing the best for themselves. So we might need a bit of help finding that.
So is there
on.
like an adult way of basically mimicking like what you do with the children and the sticker charts, so their good behaviour is rewarded and then at the end they get something?
In what capacity are you talking?
As in, because the motivation would be to get that end goal. So I'm wondering if there's a way that you can do that with older teens. Obviously, a sticker chart's going to be a bit young for them.
Yeah, I mean, I really focus on the feelings and what is it that's getting them fired up. So yeah, I like the sticker chart, but what is their end goal and how do they feel at the end of that goal? Definitely.
So when you are actually in a conflict though, and you end up arguing with your team, obviously like arguing, being assertive is quite a skill when it comes to somebody who's so close to you and you're very emotional, and some of the words that get thrown out by them and even by you could both regret, and they could be quite hurtful. How can you stay in control in that situation and without getting too emotional and taking things to heart?
Yeah. In terms of because it can end up being a cycle. In terms of these are the behaviours that you've developed. They can be difficult to change. So sometimes in terms of that, you have to have a different outlook or plan it out, and maybe say if we end up in patterns, so we can kind of predict what's going to happen. We can predict what the child's going to say back to us. We can predict. So I guess it would be a case of preempting what's going to happen. So if they say this, then I'm not going to react like that. I'm going to say this, or I might walk away, or you just plan it. All of it is planning. Especially if you know that you've got into a cycle, so that they're going to hit the roof, and then you can sit there and go, okay, yep, I knew that they'd hit the roof, and this is what I'm going to try today. Instead of reacting that way, I'll react this way.
And do you have any advice for parents to work together? So where a lot of children play their parents off of each other, like at all ages, and with families being so busy and one being in the house, one being at work and swapping shifts, how can you work together when you're not even in the house together at the same time?
Again, it's going to be communication. It's going to have to be communication, and that comes down to the relationship that you develop with your partner as well, and kind of understanding that if you don't work together, then it's going to be very difficult for both of you or one of the other of you. So again, it's all about communication. It's all about being respectful of each other in that household and in that relationship. So you have to have common ground. Otherwise, it can become very fractious. I speak to parents all the time whose relationships are actually going down the pan because of their child, and because of these teen years and because of the way that they're carrying on. So it's your question is very relevant. It does happen, and I'd say it's down to communication and establishing ground rules. And if you've got common ground with your partner, then it's more difficult for your child to kind of go off the rails. If you haven't, then and everything's a bit unstable or wishy-washy, then that's when they're likely to play each parent off on the other. So get your relationship in check, and then you'll find things a lot easier.
So in the instance of step parents, and you have a third either father or mother, how do you then get the child to appreciate the step parent when another parent comes back from the past, even if they've not been there their whole life? So
how do you get them to?
Yeah, so like an absent father, for example, away for many, many years, and then obviously stepfather's brought up the child, done everything for the child, and then the absent father comes back into the child's life, and then the stepfather gets pushed out. How do you get them to like respect and see everything that the stepfather has done? Because I think teenagers live in the now, and they don't seem to have the ability to zoom back to the past. Only when, and I noticed this myself when I became a parent, and I became a parent very young, that it was only really then that I could see my mum and dad and everybody for what they had done, because I was now experiencing it myself. So
you just answered your own question. They might not. So I think in terms of that, they do live in the now. You're quite right. I would say, celebrate the fact that, they're having or building a relationship with an absent parent. I wouldn't get too hung up on that. The time will tell, and time will show who's who in the relationship. If it doesn't, then that's unusual and it's unfortunate. But like you said, time, you look back on things, and if it's not happening now, you can't force that. All you can do is do the right thing by your children. All you can do is celebrate the fact that they are, having an exposure to another person who cares for them, or is showing an interest in them at that time, and enjoy the moments. I wouldn't try and get hung up on it. I wouldn't try and get hung up on that. It will all come good in the end.
So parenting, obviously a full-time job. If it was a job available where you earn some money from it, what would the top 5 descriptions for the role be?
The top 5 descriptions for parenting?
Yeah. Put you on the spot now.
Oh my goodness. Relentless work.
Sleeping with one eye open.
Emotional roller coaster. Questioning yourself. Oh God. Never feeling that you are doing it right. It isn't easy. None of us are finding it easy in terms of the things that are thrown at us. But certainly, what I would advise any parent going into the teen years is get the support. Don't be ashamed of reaching out. You're not supposed to know everything. In terms of the work that I've done, I've been doing it over 20 years. You're not supposed to know everything that I know. I've studied this. So, don't be afraid to reach out for support from other people, from experts out there. There's only so much that we know. And like I said, we were taught how to be parents when we first had our children. We were taught even before they were born. So, don't expect to know everything. You won't know it. And, if you want life to be easier, get the support from others.
So do you want to share with us what your group is in Facebook for anyone that wants to join it, and any other places that we can hear more of your work?
Yeah, sure. My Facebook page, or my Facebook group, is called the Parents of Teens and Preteens Village Community. And the reason why it's, I've named it Village is because of an old African proverb which says it takes a village to raise a child. And I stand by that. None of us should be doing that alone. So if you want to find me on Facebook, then, you can request to join. And, there's a lovely community of parents in there who are very supportive, going through all kinds of things, it's a lovely group. There's a lot more to be coming in the group as well. So, if you join, do keep your eyes peeled for more to come. And also my website is teenbehavior.com. So you can type that in and you can read about some of the resources that I have that you can purchase on there. And some of the work that I do.
Brilliant, thank you. And is there anything else that you wanted to say before we go?
Find me on Facebook, Anika Vassell, teen behaviourist, and join my group. It'd be lovely to have you there.
If you like this episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave Nicola a review on iTunes. You can also check out the show notes and get other free content on her website, FeustelFIT.co.uk. If you'd like to contact Nicola, email nicola@FeustelFIT.co.uk.